Episode 47, iCatcher, a podcast catching application for iOS devices. This is Chris Grabowski. I wanted to take you on a demonstration of a podcatching app that I use called iCatcher. I am going to double tap to start the iCatcher.
iCatcher. Find new podcasts. Button. 1 of 4.
And at the top you have some buttons. You have Find New Podcasts.
Import feed from URL.
You can
Button.
import
2
the
of
feed
4.
from the URL.
Import media. Button.
You can
3 of
import
4.
media.
Browse the web for podcasts. Button.
And you can
4 of
browse
4.
the web for podcasts. Now I'm going to continue to flick down and let's
Landscape.
flick to the right and see what we have.
Home button to the left. Portrait. Import feed from URL. Import. Browse. Refresh pod. Now playing. Next refresh. Now playing. This week in Google 181. I bonged my little thingy. All Twitch shows.
Okay, that's what's currently playing.
Next refresh. 4:11 a.m.
There's the next refresh, which happens at 4:11.
Search your podcasts. Search field. Double tap to edit.
I can search the podcasts for specific keywords.
19 gear. Button. Change sort and other general podcast options.
I can change the sort, type, and other general podcasting options. Let me double tap that.
Podcast settings. Heading. Podcast sort. Heading. Manual sort. Button.
You can manual sort,
Priority. Then title. Button.
sort by priority and then title.
Title AC. Button.
Title A through Z.
Downloads. Most. Then latest. Button.
Downloads most. How many podcasts? The podcast that has the most episodes, and then the latest.
Selected. Most recent.
And
Button.
then most recent, which is what I have it set at.
Downloads. Most. Then priority. Button. Podcast defaults. Button.
And then there's podcast defaults. And we could tap that.
Podcast defaults. Heading. Days between episodes. 0.
Days between episodes is 0. So if you have a podcast, for example, that only comes out once a week, you can have it only check every 7 days.
New episodes. Download.
New episodes are set to download.
Episodes to grab. All.
Episodes to grab are all.
Episodes to keep. All.
Episodes to keep are all. And that would be episodes in the list. It's different than the media, so that you can go back and play an episode if you wanted to. I keep them all because I might want to reference them at a later time.
Downloads to keep. All.
And here's downloads to keep, all.
After playing. Delete download.
And then after playing, it's set to delete the download, which that's what I like. So when the episode is playing, the downloaded file will be deleted, or when you mark it as played, the downloaded file will be deleted.
Media types. All.
Media types are all.
These defaults affect newly added podcasts as well as existing podcasts if their respective settings say use application setting.
Then I'm going to go back.
Podcast settings. Heading.
Go back again.
Find new podcasts. Button. 1
And
of
there
4.
I am. So now I'm going to continue down the main screen.
Import feed from import media. Browse the web. Refresh pod. Now playing. Next refresh. 4:11 a.m. Search your podcasts. 19 gear. But 31 podcasts. Refresh. Button.
It says 31
Refresh feeds.
podcasts. That's how many podcasts I'm subscribed to.
All Twitch shows. 6 new downloads. 6 unplayed episodes. 27 episodes. January 17th. Podcast options for all Twitch shows. Button. The Superman Podcast Network. 2 new downloads. 2 unplayed episodes. 12 episodes. January 17th.
So it tells you how many downloads, how many unplayed downloads, and the total number of episodes in the feed.
Podcast options for the Superman Pod 5x5 Master Audio Podcast options for Geek Beat Podcast All CNET Video Podcast Podcast Macworld Podcast Podcast Zero Talk Pod Snide Rem Pod Mystic Place Blog and Podcast 0 new downloads 0 unplayed episodes 23 episodes January 16th.
Now I'm going to flick one more time.
Podcast options for Mystic Place Blog and Podcast button.
There are the podcast
Access
options
for podcast
for the specific feed, so I can double tap that.
Mystic Place Blog and Podcast.
Now we'll flick to the right.
Remove podcast button.
I can remove the podcast.
Unsubscribe button.
I can unsubscribe.
Settings button.
And I can go to the settings of the podcast feed itself.
Share button.
I can share it.
Setting. Remove podcast button.
I'm going to remove the podcast.
Delete button.
I can delete.
Find new podcasts button. Import feed. Import. Browse the refresh podcasts.
And now
button.
I'm back to the main screen.
Tap to refresh. Now playing. Next refresh. Search your podcast. 19 gear. 30 podcasts.
So there are 30 podcasts. Now I'm going to go and add a podcast.
Now playing. This week in Google. Find new podcasts. Find new podcasts button.
Up to the Find New Podcasts button. Double tap that.
Podcast search. Done button. Podcast search. Heading. Search for podcasts. Search field. Double tap to edit.
I'm going to double tap that.
Search field is editing. Search for podcasts. Selected. All button. 1 of 4. Title button. 2 of 4.
So you can search in all. You can search in the title.
Keyword button.
Keyword.
3 author button.
Or by
4
author.
of 4. Top podcasts. Arts. N.
I'm going to
November. More. Number. Dictate.
Mystic Place.
Thinking. Inverted Mystic Place.
Then I'm going to go to search.
Hot shift. Search. Done button. Podcast search.
Now let's see
Heading.
what we have for results.
Mystic Place. Clear text. Selected. All. Title. Keyword. Author. Literature. 4/16/11. Littlebird told me. A author. Button. Software how to. 1/16/13. Mystic Place blog and podcast.
There it is. And if you heard that sound in the background, that sound was a refresh, but no new feeds.
Details. Podcast search. Back button.
So I just double tapped the Mystic Place podcast, and I will flick to the right.
Details. Heading. Subscribe button.
I could subscribe.
Mystic Place blog and podcast. Episodes to import. All. Download after subscribe. 1. The Mystic Place is a place you can stay for a while. We talk about assistive technology and post reviews of products of interest. Category. Software how to. Type. Audio. Last released January 16th, 2013. Episodes. 25. Feed URL. http://www.mysticplace.info/feed equals podcast.
And there's the actual feed.
January 16th, 2013, 9:47 a.m. Android Accessibility Part 2. 53, 54.
So let's go back to the top of the screen.
Podcast search. Back button. Details. Heading. Subscribe. Button.
And I'm going to subscribe.
Processing. Dimmed. Alert. Subscribed. You are now subscribed to Mystic Place blog and podcast. You are now subscribed. Dismiss. Button.
And I'm going to dismiss the notification.
Podcast search. Done. Button.
And I'm going to click done.
All Twitch shows. 6 new downloads. 6 unplayed episodes. 27 episodes. January 17th.
So now let's play a podcast. Let's see what we have when we...
Podcast options. The Superman podcast. All Twitch shows. 6 new downloads. 6 unplayed episodes. 27 episodes. January 17th.
I'm going to go to all Twitch shows and double tap.
Podcasts. Back button. All Twitch shows. Last refresh Thursday 4:12 a.m. Button.
And that was when it was last
Check for new
refreshed.
episodes. Now playing. This week in Google 181. I bonged my little thingy. All Twitch shows. Tom Merritt brings you tech news today with co-host Sarah Lane, Tech TV, Revision 3, iCatcher, PC Mag, Tech V, and others.
This is information
Get
about
up
the
to speed.
podcast.
Actions for podcast feed. Button. Actions for episodes. Button.
You can do actions for the podcast feed, actions for episodes. Let's double tap actions for episodes and let's see what we have.
Mark all episodes.
You can mark all episodes.
Played.
Played.
Button. New. Button.
New.
For download.
For
Button.
download.
For streaming.
For
Button.
streaming. So let's back out of here.
Podcasts. Back button. Alt. Now. Top. Actions. Actions for. Delete action. Podcast set. Edit. Button. Search podcast episode. 6 downloaded. Heading.
You can actually search through in the edit box for through podcast episodes. So if you're looking for all shows with a certain word in the show, you can search.
This week in Google 108 episode options. Twit live specials 1 episode. This week in Google 181. I bonged my little thingy. This episode has audio. Aaron Swartz Legacy.
I'm going to
Google
double
Social
tap
Graph.
this.
Street View selected. This week in all Twitch shows. Back button.
And we're stuck in our old models of thinking that you can own content and thus own the
Okay,
knowledge
so
that
I'm going to
comes
pause
into it.
this with a two-finger
And
double
that's what
tap,
he was about.
and let's explore the area here.
All Twitch shows. This week in Google 181. I bonged my little thingy. 0, 24, 24.
That's how far
Current
along I
playback
am.
time. Media playback position. 26%. Adjustable. Swipe up or down with one finger to adjust the value. 1, 10, 43. Time remaining. Back-to-back playback disabled. Button.
Back-to-back playback is disabled. You can turn it on for each podcast feed, and what that means is it will play when it's done with one episode, it'll play the next, and then the next, and then so on.
All Twitch shows. Link. Image. 1/17/13, 2:53 a.m. Web. http://twit. TV/ link. Aaron Swartz Legacy. Aaron Swartz Legacy. Google Social Graph. Street View Surprise. And more. Hosts, Leo Laporte, Gina Trapani, and Jeff Jarvis. Guest, Kevin Mars. Download or subscribe to this show at twit.tv/twig. We invite you to read, add to, and amend our show notes. Thanks to Catch a Fly for the bandwidth for this show. Running time. 1:35. 8. Rewind 30 seconds. Button.
So you have now we're in the buttons. Rewind 30 seconds.
Rewind/previous podcast. Button. Previous podcast or hold down to rewind 10 seconds a second.
Okay, so we got a little tooltip hint.
Selected. Play/pause.
There's
button.
the play pause button. So if I was to double tap that, it would start playing the podcast.
Fast/next podcast. Button.
And there's the fast forward next
podcast. Or
podcast.
hold fast forward 30 seconds. Button.
There's a 30 seconds button.
78 stopwatch. Button.
And this is the sleep timer button.
1x. Button.
There's your speed control.
Toggles playback
so you
speed.
tap that and it'll change the speed control.
Volume. 56%. Adjustable. Airplay. Button.
There's your airplay button.
More actions. Button.
There's a more actions button, and in here
Mail. Button.
we could mail the episode.
Message. Button.
We could message the episode.
Twitter. Button.
Send it on Twitter.
Copy. Button.
Copy it to the clipboard.
Keep download. Button.
Keep the download.
Email show notes. Button.
Email the show notes.
Facebook wall. Button.
Add it to your Facebook wall. And I'm going to go back.
All Twitch shows. Back button.
And then I'm going to go back.
Podcasts. Back button.
And the way that the episodes are listed, you have two areas. The upper portion are the unplayed episodes, and the lower portion are the played episodes. So let's just flick down through again and see what we have here.
All Twitch now playing. Tom Merritt brings you tech news. Actions for podcast. Actions for delete podcast settings. Edit button. Search pod. 6 downloaded. Heading.
So we have 6 downloaded, so there's 6 downloaded episodes here.
This week in Google 181. I bonged my little thingy. This episode has audio. Aaron Swartz Legacy. Google Social Graph. Street View Surprise. And more. Hosts, Leo Laporte, Gina T. Ellipsis. 1, 10, 43, / 1, 35, 8, Thursday 2:53 a.m.
So we get a lot of information on that.
Episode options. Button. Twit Live Specials 152. John Ellis, Ford Software Evangelist. Episode options. Security Now 387. Your questions. Steve's Answers Episode. Floss Weekly 238. Chavant. This episode has audio. Chavant is a coroutine-based Python network. Episode options. Button.
Okay, if we click the
Access options
episodes
for
button,
episode.
I'm not interested in this episode, so if I double tap that button,
Floss Weekly 230. Mark as played.
I can mark
Button.
it as played.
Podcasts. Back button.
Now it marked it as played.
Alt. Actions. Delete. Podcast. Edit. Search pod. 5 downloaded. Heading.
So now it's down to 5 downloaded.
This episode. Episode. 6. Episode. This week. Episode. I5. Episode. 22 episodes. Heading.
And then here's the played shows, 22 episodes. Now I'm going to continue flicking.
Floss Weekly 238. Chavant. This episode has audio. Chavant is a coroutine-based episode option. Mac Break Weekly 333. Apple Shorts. This episode has audio. We talk about Apple's tumbling stock
Okay,
price,
there's Mac Break
iPhone
Weekly.
sales,
If I
Tim
double
Cook
tap
meets with
that,
Chinese
let's see what
government,
happens.
And Ellipsis. The episode Mac Break Weekly 333. Apple Shorts has not been downloaded. Download it. Button.
So we can download it,
Stream it.
or we can
Button.
stream it. So let's double tap the stream button.
It shows. Back button.
For Mac Break Weekly, Andy Iannacco, Renee Ritchie joins Adam Engst and me. I'm back, baby, to talk about Apple. Their stock price is tumbling. Why? We'll find out next on Mac Break.
And there we go. So we'll double tap this. Now I'm going to go back to the main screen. So I will go back.
Podcasts. Back button.
And I use the squiggle gesture, the left-right real quick. Go there.
Find new podcasts. Button.
Now we're back to the
Monitor.
main screen. At the bottom of the screen, you have tabs.
Selected. Podcasts. Tab.
So you have a
1 of 5.
podcasts tab, which is where we've been spending most of our time.
Downloads. Tab. 2 of 5.
We have a downloads tab, and this shows you the download queue. You can mark the downloads that are in the queue, if there are any, or if they are stuck. You can do that.
Playlists. Tab. 3 of 5.
There are playlists. You can create playlists. It has some smart type of playlists that you can play all audio, play all video. And one thing that you could do is if you are in the playlist and you decide, okay, I have 100 episodes that I have not listened to, so I want to just clear them all. So you'd create a playlist and you would select all playlist, and then actually let me do it.
Help. Playlists. Tab. 3 of 5. Selected.
I'll go to playlists.
Tab. 3 of 5. Help. New. Edit. Button. Refresh. Now playing. Use space. Free space. My playlists. Free. Now refresh podcasts. Button.
So now
Tap
we
to
can refresh the
scheduled
podcasts.
Now playing. Mac Break Weekly 333. Apple Shorts. All Twitch shows.
And that sound was a weather alert.
Used space. 1.3 gigabytes.
That's a use space of 1.3 gigabytes.
Free space. 34.7 gigabytes. My playlists. Heading. Create new playlist. New downloads and streaming. Heading. All. 38.
Okay, so I want to get rid of all 38 podcasts. So I will hit this one.
Back. Back button. New downloads and streaming all. Now playing. Mac Break. Search. Search feed. Manual. Button.
There's manual.
Edit. Button.
You can edit.
Actions for listed episodes. Button.
Actions for listed episodes. So we will double tap that.
All episodes. Mark as played. Button.
Mark is played.
Create playlist.
Create a
Button.
playlist.
Delete downloads.
Delete the downloads
Re-download. Button.
or re-download.
Mark all episodes. Mark as played.
And I'm going to mark
Button.
as played.
Marking as played will also delete the downloaded files unless the episode is specifically set to keep the download. Do you want to proceed?
And I'm going to flick to the right
Continue. Button.
and double tap. And it is now marking
Back.
them all as
Back button.
played, and it has deleted all of the media files.
Edit. Button.
So now we're going to go back down.
Edit. Button. Edit. Refresh podcast. Now playing. Mac Break Weekly 330. Used space. 0.0 megabytes.
So now 0 megabytes is used,
Free space. 35.8 gigabytes.
and I've got my gigabyte back. So now I'm going to
Just video.
go to the
0.
bottom.
Help. Tab.
There's
4
a
of
help.
5. Settings.
There's
Tab.
settings.
Help. Selected. Playlists.
There's the
1 item.
playlist, which is
Tab.
where we are.
3 of help.
Then you
Tab.
have help.
4 settings.
Then you
Tab.
have settings.
5 of 5.
And I'm going to double tap that.
Selected. Settings. Tab. 5 of 5.
Now let's explore the settings screen and see what we have. So we're going to flick to the right.
Settings. Heading. Now playing. Mac Break. iCloud Sync.
There's iCloud Sync.
Podcast defaults.
There's your podcast defaults. It's going to iCloud Sync.
iCloud Sync. iCloud Sync. Heading. Sync options. Heading. Enable all. Switch button. On.
I have everything enabled.
Double tap. Episodes. Switch button. On.
Episodes will be synced to
Double tap to
iCloud. This
toggle
would be
setting.
for if you have iCatcher on another device, it will synchronize between both devices.
Podcasts. Switch button. On.
There's your podcasts,
Playlists. Switch button. On.
playlists,
Sync group star. Star C sync options. Status. Heading. Selected. Episodes. 1/17/13, 4:25 a.m.
That was when it was last synced.
Selected. Podcasts. 1/17/13, 4:14 a.m. Selected. Playlists. 1/17/13, 3:57 a.m. Date and times reflect the last time data was opened or saved to iCloud.
So I'm going to go back.
Settings. Heading. Now, iCloud. Podcast default. Connectivity and downloads. Podcast defaults.
Podcast defaults. Let's see what we have in here.
Podcast defaults. Heading. Days between episodes. 0.
This is every feed. So we've seen these settings before when we opened up the settings in the podcast feed. So there's how you can change them if you don't want them to check the podcast feeds every day.
New episodes. Download. Episodes to grab. All. Episodes to keep. All. Downloads to keep. All. After playing. Delete download. Media types. All.
Okay, so we've seen all these. Let's back out of here.
Settings. Heading. Now playing. iCloud. Podcast defaults. Connectivity and downloads.
Connectivity and downloads. Double tap.
Connectivity and downloads. Auto refresh podcasts. Heading. 1 hour from last refresh. Button.
1 hour from last refresh, which is what I have it set to. So every hour it will refresh podcasts.
Refresh podcasts. Heading. Any network connection. Button.
Any network connection. You can change this to Wi-Fi only if you don't want your podcasts to refresh when you are on the cell network.
Auto download new episodes. Heading.
Auto download new episodes.
Auto download Wi-Fi only. Button.
And I have that set to Wi-Fi only because I don't want a couple 100 MB files coming down and using the bandwidth.
Prevent screen dimming. Switch button. Off. Prevent device from locking while episodes are downloading. Wi-Fi networks. Heading. Hyphen. Button.
And you can actually change this and add specific locations that you want podcasts to automatically update. So if you go to a couple of specific places like your home or your coffee shop, once you get to the coffee shop, it will automatically pull for new podcasts.
Download after. Switch button. On. Start downloading after podcasts are done refreshing. Set to off to have it start download as soon as possible.
And I'm going to back out of here.
Settings. Heading. Now, iCloud. Podcast. Connected. Appearance.
Appearance.
Default actions.
Default actions.
Default actions.
Let's see what we have in here.
Mark as played. Heading. Delete the download. Button. Delete episode without confirmation. Switch button. On. On. No confirmation when selecting to delete an episode. Context-aware delete. Switch button. On. On. Delete action is based on the state of the episode. Off. Delete will delete the episode. Unplayed downloads. Switch button. On. Force delete of unplayed downloaded episodes when episodes to keep is set to some number lower than the number of episodes downloaded.
Okay, so I'm going to back out of here.
Settings. Heading. Restrictions. Region. Playback. Notifications. Media sharing and backup. Location plus background.
And I'm actually flipping to the left. I put my finger on the screen.
Gestures. Default actions. Gesture. Location plus background.
There's location and background.
Media sharing and backup.
There's media sharing and backup.
Notifications.
There's notifications. Let's double tap that and go in here and see what we can do.
Notifications. Downloads completed. Switch button. On.
Do you want a notification
Double
when a
tap to
download
toggle
is complete?
Alert when downloads finish if app is not active or screen locked. Refresh completed. Switch button. On. Alert when podcast refresh finishes if app is not active or screen locked. Download alerts. Switch button. Off. Downloading in the background is limited by iOS and system resources. If time runs out, then the download stops.
I'm going to go back.
Settings. Heading.
Put my finger in the middle of the screen.
Restrictions. Region. Playback. Notifications. Playback.
There's playback. Let's go into playback.
Playback. Load last playing. Switch button. On. Loads last playing episode unopened. Playback speed button. Switch button. On. Off. Disables the toggle speed button on the now playing screen. Use gestures to toggle playback speed. Auto pause video. Switch button. On. Should video be paused when you press the home button or navigate away from the now playing view?
I'm actually going to turn that off.
Auto pause video. Switch button. On. Auto pause video. Switch button. Off.
That means if the podcast is a video podcast, if you wanted to go do something else, the audio will still play in the background.
Settings. Heading.
And I just went back to the settings screen.
Restrictions.
There's restrictions. I put my finger in the middle of the screen.
Show daily tips. No.
Show daily tips. No.
Sound effects.
Sound effects. Let's see what we have for sound effects.
Sound effects. Sound effects. Heading. Obey mute switch. Button.
Obey the mute switch.
Refresh started. Heading.
And then you have
Default. Button.
refresh started, which is default. Let's double tap that.
Setting. Heading. Refresh started. Disable.
You can disable it.
Selected. Default.
The default, which is like a little click.
Alternative 1.
Alternative 1. And let's double tap that.
Refresh started. Sound effects.
Okay, so it said refresh started. It was a synthesized voice.
Sound effect. Obey mute switch. But refresh started. Heading. Alternative 1. Button.
I'm going to change that back.
Setting. Heading. Refresh. Disable. Default. Sound
And
effects.
there's that little click. We heard it.
Sound effects. Obey mute switch. Refresh. Default. Button. Refresh completed. No downloads.
There's refresh
Heading.
completed
Default. Button.
with no downloads.
Refresh completed. With downloads. Heading.
There's a refresh completed with downloads.
Default. Done downloading. Heading. Default. Button.
There's a done downloading. So each time a podcast is downloaded, you're going to hear a little like ding sound.
Next podcast. Heading. Default. Button.
If you have that option set that we looked at before, where back to back, if you have that turned on, then you will hear a sound between the beginning and ending of a show. Go back.
Settings. Heading.
Finger in the middle of the screen.
Custom podcast list.
Custom podcast list.
All not subscribed podcasts.
All not subscribed. This is a backup. It'll create an OPML file for you.
All subscribed podcast. All podcasts. Backup or share podcasts. Sound effects.
And I'm going up. There's the sound effects. So let's go back to the right.
Backup or share podcasts. Heading. All podcasts. All subscribed podcasts. All not subscribed podcasts. Custom podcast list. Tap custom to select individual podcasts to share or backup. Import media. Import files uploaded using iTunes file sharing. See podcasts. Tab. 1 of 5.
And then we're back to the podcasts tab. So we'll double tap that just so we move back to the main area.
Selected. Podcasts. Tab. 1 of 5.
And I'm going to press the home key.
iCatcher. Double tap to open.
And I'm going to lock my screen.
Screen locked.
Well, I hope you have enjoyed this episode of iCatcher. If you would like to leave me any feedback, comments, or suggestions, my contact information follows. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Hi there, my name is Joey.
And my name is Kimberly.
Thanks for listening to the Mystic Place blog and podcast. We hope you have enjoyed this episode.
Joey.
Yes, Kimberly.
It is my turn to talk.
Okay.
Thanks, Joey.
No problem.
If you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to send an email to mysticplacepodcast@gmail.com or leave a voice message at 864 Mystic 4, that is 864697844, or follow him on Twitter at cgrabo73.
You can visit the blog at www.mysticplacepodcast.com.
Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast by searching in iTunes or at www.mysticplacepodcast.com/question feed equals podcast to your podcatcher.
Have a nice day.
Take care.